Oh, hey, I'm just catching up on Chuck-a-Muck. I guess we're live. Well, welcome everybody. We've got already dozens of people coming into the Creativeside Chat studio here. As you can see, I'm hanging out in Chuck's studio. It's always a nice place to get inspired. Today we have a treat. I mean, normally you come in and you get to be hosted by Ben Olson, who is probably the preeminent Creativeside Chat in history, since Creativeside Chats are now 2 years old. That's a long history of Creativeside Chat, monumental presentations. And now I get to come in and be a host with Ben as our featured artist today. So I truly hope that you are actually hearing me. Otherwise, you're just watching a mouth go up and down. But I'm assuming that because I'm not getting any waving hands in the back, I am actually here. So you know what? What I really want to do is bring Ben in to welcome, and everybody can clap wildly in the background as he comes in. My favorite artist today, Ben Olson. I know, see, everybody's in it. Yes, all right. They're clapping, I can see in the chat. Yeah, that should be the clap room, not the chat room. So I kind of like it. Ben, how are you feeling? I mean, you've been a little frenetic lately, but you've got so many things going on. You've been juggling about 9 things all at once, but you look good. You look calm. You look healthy. Tell me what's going on. Yeah, so that's even better.
If we're going to start tonight, right? And why, I figure let's bust out, and people will understand why this is the last big thing here anyway.
Yeah.
So we do the drink thing. I have my Death Star ice cube maker, right? So I have a Death Star ice cube. And
nice.
And I've got my buddy Steve and my buddy Kirk here because they were here last time when I tanked one of these margaritas. And so I figured if we're gonna kick it off, it's a Thursday. It feels like a Friday. Let's go with tequila.
Let it roll.
Can you hear
time? Yeah, absolutely you can.
I can't bring it. That's tequila. I can't bring it. And don't worry. My wife's like, please no. And I'm like, Steve's here. He'll finish the show for me. and can you hear the peanut gallery already?
It is a total peanut gallery. Shake it first. Shake.
You did.
We're all shaking. All right, everybody should shake. Here we go.
And let's just, and I know it's not the original lime juice and whatnot, but I've got to empty this from the fridge too. So we're going to dilute the tequila just a tad.
Just a hair.
You need me I should add more tequila to this, you think? I can't take the bottle with me. So I think that about does it.
Nice. So are you saying that when that cocktail is done, we're done?
Yes, and if you've ever seen Thor Ragnarok, I'm not going to do what Valkyrie did and chug this thing in like 5 seconds.
Thank you. That would be a very different show because,
I'd be on the floor and I don't know.
That's right. You'd be mopping it up. I kind of like it. You got the show cocktail going. Well, okay, now that we've officially started today, I wanted to, let me see if I can get this because really I just want to talk to you. And I'm setting up things here. So I'm going to, there you are. Yes, you've got the Mind shirt on. For some reason, that seems very appropriate today. And that it is. It's not just about us, it's about you, which is all about, when you say it, it's mine. Tonight is about mine. And I kind of like that. So, maybe it's good for us to just touch upon why on Earth or Mars we're here. I mean, it's been a heck of a journey. I mean, you're still a puppy dog, as far as the age goes, but your journey has been quite impressive. Let's put it that way. And it's kind of like the crooked mile that you've gone throughout your life. And I mean, we just met just recently, like 14 years ago or whatever the heck it was, or however many years ago it was. But I haven't been able to share necessarily, and every time that I ask you this question, I get a different answer. So I'm just going to pop a question that you don't know is coming. That what inspired you to want to get into art rather than, I don't know, like flying airplanes like your brother does?
So yeah, my brother, the Air Force captain,
Yeah.
C-17s. Yeah, not my path. So, when I was a little kid, as growing up, art was a thing. Kindergarten was a thing. We went through this on a show previously. My kindergarten teacher, that was not great with the art, because I didn't do it like everybody else did. But like really, like inspiration came from I was doing little drawings and stuff and Saturday morning cartoons. And as a kid, Saturday mornings were like the 7 to 10 a.m. block, and I don't remember what channel it was on, but like Looney Tunes was like a thing that took up the majority of the block. And when I was growing up, I got to watch a lot of Saturday morning cartoons, and watching images move like that fascinated me. And so I would color, I would draw, I would do whatever, 5, 6, 8, 10 years old, and continue doing that. And the thing with my brother and I, him being in the Air Force, he always knew from when he was little that he wanted to be a pilot, period. Air Force, period. Right. I knew and he did. He achieved it. He now flies for Southwest, but he was a C-17 pilot for the Air Force, and incredible work that he did, and some incredible stories that he has. And from when I was little, I wanted to be an artist, and I wanted to be an animator first and foremost. So, and I knew that from when I was little. So there was no question. It was, I have a desire to do this, and I want to, what I want to keep doing. Like, who does that? How do you do that? Oh, I like that over there. How do you do that? Let's just try things.
How old were you when you kind of thought, I want to make these cartoons? I want to make cartoons that move like these guys are making them. How old were you then?
10.
10 years old. That's pretty awesome.
I saw that Mermaid for the first time. I saw the first feature animated film I ever saw in a theater was The Little Mermaid. And I remember, the opening or the sequence with Ariel that Glenn Keane animates when she's dreaming about, or, like singing about, what she wants in the world, I remember like the hair flowing and how things moved and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, how do you do that? I want to do that. Yeah, I need a dingle hopper, right?
That's right. Exactly.
Did you use this on the pizza? Is that your dingle hopper? All right. So,
You're supposed to do your hair with that. Come on.
At one point I had glorious hair. It's all traveling south now. But yeah, that was it, man. That was the thing. I saw that. I was fascinated with seeing that on a big screen. And then, you get to Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin, which is my all-time favorite animated feature, and, that kind of stuff. And I was just totally enthralled. So you marry that with what I was watching in Saturday morning cartoons, which is a different kind of feel. I'm like, I want to do. I want to do that.
So obviously you didn't go into animation. Tell me about that twist. What is it that okay, I'm not doing that right now. I'm going this direction.
So art was the thing, right? So I'm in high school. My counselor's working with me. They know I want to go to art school from when I was a freshman. And we're like, all right, how do we plan for this? And so I got all of my gen ed classes done by my junior year, other than you had to have 4 years of English and like 4 years of gym. So my senior year was an English and a gym class and like 5 or 6 independent study art classes. And I was learning computer animation for the first time, and that was in '97, so that was fairly new. And I had fine art and I had all this kind of stuff. And I got into Ringling School of Art and Design, which was my #1 school. And I remember getting the letter the one day, and I opened up the letter, and this was before they just send you an email now. And I was like, you're accepted. And I sent a portfolio, like and I was jacked, man, because I'm like, I made it. and I wanted the Orlando studio for feature animation, and Disney pulled heavy from Ringling School of Art and Design, and then you visit the campus, right? And my dad was a preacher at the time, and then they tell you how much it is, and we're like, oh, $38,000 a year. I'm gonna go with where's the money coming from, and we don't know. And thankfully, like my parents even back then were like, look, we can't do the loan thing and sign for that much, and I got it, and I'm so glad they didn't, because I'd still be paying it off today. And so I went to College DuPage, which is a community college here. I had some phenomenal art professors. I got into photography. I started getting into design. And I realized once I got into college that animation wasn't the only thing. I was a creative, and I needed to exercise that through design, through fine art, through film, through all those elements. And that's where it took into exploring all kinds of stuff.
So you go off and obviously start to be creative, and you just realize that it's not just one way of animating or to show your creativity, or one way that because you've painted for a lot of years and you've drawn for a lot of years, but there were other ways that you could express your creativity. And so at some point, you're done with college, you start to work, and you decide that you want to live, like support yourself, and like everybody does. I mean, that's as Chuck said, you have to actually earn money to die poor, and so you have to get there. And so you tell me about the twists and turns that got you, because you're a big time, and I will say this because I'm in awe of it. You're a big time creative director out of the Chicagoland area, and you've been doing this for a lot of years. You've had large studios, small studios, all that kind of stuff. So how did you venture down that direction?
Well, it went through. First of all, I never finished college.
Okay.
It took 4 years to not get a 2-year degree at a community school. You know why? Because guess what I kept taking? Art classes.
Go
I'm
figure.
like, I got it, art classes. So I was literally 4 classes away of gen eds from graduating, and I just never did it. And my parents even threw me a graduation party when my brother graduated from high school, and they're like, woohoo! And I'm like, yeah, that didn't actually happen that way. So
it worked.
It worked. So, I got into, when I was in college, I ended up, you want to live on your own, you're going to have to make some money, and more than, my bagel shop job that I had. And it was a phenomenal job, and I ate a lot of food there, but it's not going to sustain living. And so I got into photography with Auto Trader, taking pictures of cars, nothing glamorous, right?
Yeah.
Look at that angle, look at that angle. All right, going in the magazine. And through that got me on my feet. And then I started fine art illustration was my major, but I wasn't in my major. I was doing this thing. And then I'm like, after a few years, I'm like, I'm feeling like I need to like something different. So I applied as a sketch artist for this like multimedia marketing company. And I didn't know what a sketch artist was. And they're like, design stuff, draw stuff. I'm like, okay. So I showed them a portfolio. I don't even know how I got the job, because like I'm like slide charts and wheel charts and all these things you got to design. You know how much stuff I designed? Like one thing for my buddy on a steak thing, and it was terrible. Like I look back on it now, I'm like, oh, this is what not to do, kids. So I ended up getting that job, and I learned design on the job. I learned Illustrator and InDesign. I learned the principles of things. I had some fellow colleagues that were phenomenal, right? And I soaked that up. And then I used that, as I was going through, and then I made the launch I was a product designer for men's fashion for cell phones. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah, I know, isn't it? Oh, man. Remember those old Nokias that used to put in a little flip pocket and stuff like that? Yeah, I would design stuff. And I have something here too, as I'm cleaning out the studio. And I kept it. And so I got laid off there because that was in 2008, and the market tanked. So I was the first part of the department to go, and then everything went. And I had like a couple of clients that I was doing some design work for, and it's a major hospital system here. And so I was like, okay. And I got my first, that was my first event. I couldn't as a semi-senior level designer, I couldn't get an entry level design job because guys that were above me were going for the lower stuff, and they were better than me. So they were getting these, it just, the way the market worked was big, it worked all its way down. So I had some clients, and I'm like, let's try this. Like, and so I got one more client, and he was like, hey, I need branding for this stuff. I'd done some logo work, and I'm like, okay. And I did it. And it was a healthy paycheck. And I kept that going. And then I learned this business thing of design and whatever. And I business association. And then and it was all about relationships. And so I learned very early, and I never gave my business card out and said, this is who I am and this is what I do. But people would ask, and so I would explain, and I just kind of kept getting jobs. And I was a corporation. I figured that out, and first of all, get a really good attorney and get a really good accountant. Don't do it. Do it on your own. And that's how that evolved from wanting to be an animator to now owning my own design agency, infant with just one person, just me, and doing stuff that I enjoyed designing.
Yeah. So, okay. So that's not too far behind the time that we met. I can't remember if it was 2009 or 2010. So I hadn't realized that it was bundled up there in that time frame so much. But I remember, and you tell your side of the story at one point, but and I think you have, but I'm brought out to Schaumburg, Illinois. Never been there before. Turns out that Chicago's the area is exactly where all of the Oscars come from. So I bring one of Chuck's back home to view, and so I'm at a gallery out there, no longer there, but I think the greatest thing that came out of that show was you. And so it was one of those like cool moments where and I probably met 100 people that day, and throughout the show, and told stories and all the rest of the stuff. But you walk through, and you're not just talking about, asking necessarily about Chuck. You're talking about the artwork. You're talking about, your memories of the art and the cartoons and things like that. And it was a fun meeting. It lasted maybe 3 or 4 minutes at the beginning. And so that was because we took pictures and did the whole thing. But then it was something that resonated, and the way that you enjoyed the art, and then to come to find out that you're a creative director out in the area, that you're doing all these projects that you love to draw. And and I always find, from my perception, like when artists appreciated Chuck's work. I mean, we were in I was in Santa Fe back in the 90s, and a fine artist. He was a teacher, but he studied with Wyeth on the East Coast for like a decade. And he came in and he looked at some of Chuck's fine art work, some of the pencil work when he was at, after Chenard, when he was doing life drawing and things like that. And he came in and he started looking at the artwork. And all of a sudden I had a bigger appreciation for Chuck, because a guy who had been, successful in the art business appreciated what Chuck did in a new way. And so, I think the thing that resonated is you being an artist and him coming in, and appreciating Chuck for his artistry. That resonated with me. A lot of people were just fans that he was famous and he was made cartoons and whatnot. You saw it a lot different way. So tell me briefly about how you then, because we met one night, probably spent half an hour together total the whole night. And then, where did it go from there, from your memory?
First of all, when people forget anniversary dates and you're like, oh, like when did you guys, when was your anniversary date? And they're like, it's 2016. And like, it was 2014, right? and it was 2008. See, I do remember that, because that's when everything was changing. And I remember, by the way, I'm not mad at you.
Dude, I mean, the time goes faster when you're my age.
It does.
So yeah.
You look younger than I do. So
yeah.
So I
they're
remember,
all Zoom filters, buddy.
So when I was in high school, I remember the high school library was bigger than my junior high library, and I would always go to the animation and art books and stuff. And there were two books that always stuck out and that I would check out continuously. And the first one that I had found was The Illusion of Life, Johnston and
Frank and Ollie. Yeah.
And I would devour that. But then there was this other book that they had, which was Chuck Amuck, and it was a bright yellow jacket. So it was easy. Yep, there it is. Yes.
I have mine.
And so I would check that out of the library regularly. And because as I pulled that out, I'm like, all I saw was the spine. I'm like, Chuck Amuck. And I'm like, oh, there's Bugs Bunny. And I'm like, this is the guy that makes all the films that I love. And so I would start reading through that. So my appreciation for him started in high school, understanding who he was and why I was so inspired by these things that weren't just cartoons to me. They were stories that came to life, and the art and the everything that went with it. So by the time I got to you in 2008 and you were in town, like, that was a big deal, because I had never, we don't get that stuff out here hardly ever, right? And that's mainly on the coasts. And
we don't get there very often, for sure.
Right? You're like, why do I come out when it's negative 10 degrees outside? I don't know. So, to be able to meet you, right, and to understand, like, I understood who you were and what you were bringing out and stuff, and to see all that, and just to, like, you were gracious enough, and you probably heard 50 billion people do this to you when you come up to play, but you don't treat them like a 50 billionth person. You treat them like one person coming up and sharing something. And you've always been very generous like that, which is something, like, one of the many things that I respect about you. And, to have this 28-year-old guy who's doing design work and stuff, and not in the field that he thought he was going to be in, but enjoying still and doing some stuff and still loving these things and the appreciation of art. And you just to listen to my babbling, on how much I, really appreciated Chuck and everything that, and here's what it really meant to me. And it's more than just this. And, that was like, a lot of people don't take that time. Right. And you take that time. And so at the end of it, there was that whole conversation was awesome. And I was in the glow, and that's where I got my first Chuck original drawing, was at that. And I still have it. It's
what was it?
Marvin the Martian from the 1980 production. And it's an original production drawing, and I have it in my library.
Okay,
and which I've since expanded. And so I remember, the last thing that you said to me was something that I'm just, for someone who loves art, loves animation, loves all this stuff, is sitting in a room, in an event with all this stuff around, and to have someone who's does this for a living and is involved in this and is the grandson of the guy that I just admire to no end, say, Ben, there's something here. I don't know where it's going. But it's going somewhere, and I just don't know yet. And I kind of want to find that out. And I'm like, so you're you, and I'm, and I'm like, I'm just this kid doing a thing. And that was after my battling and stuff. And so, and it stuck, man. And that stuck because that, there are points in life, and we've talked about this before. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe everything has a purpose, even if it's small. And you just meeting you and get it in that short little time, and then watching where things went after that was that right there. That's another one of those major life changes where it starts there, and the road where we don't know where it's going is going somewhere, but it's now a road. It's not just a little dead end.
Okay, so the next time that we really get together, we stayed in touch a little bit by email and whatnot, but fast forward to 2012, which was a big year for the Chuck Jones organizations, the Chuck Jones family. We opened the Chuck Jones Experience for a couple of years that at the beginning of that year in Las Vegas. That was 4 years in the undertaking. We had exhibitions going on with Smithsonian, and we had the Chuck Jones 100 celebration. So Chuck's 100th birthday celebration, which we had at the Alex Theater. And I actually, I haven't seen these pictures in a long time, but literally I was like, I had to go find them. And we had a Jones family gathering that year at that time, and I mean, you had collected a few things, but we'd seen each other at Comic-Con, I think, and whatever it was that we did. So we connected, but you came out and were a part of that. And there were so many people who were enthusiastic about what was going on. I mean, I was enthusiastic. I mean, we had June Foray, we had Eric Goldberg, I mean, it was, the family was all there, the celebration, and we Alex Theater in Glendale, historical theater, you know, that, and I still remember this, that they couldn't start the show with the curtain down because it had a big brand on it called asbestos. Because back then in the early 20s, that was a cool thing, you know, it kept you safe. But you know, your enthusiasm about every person, about all the activities, about all of the insights and whatnot was infectious. And so, you know, I loved that, you know, you were as much a fan as you were a contributor to the experience of the whole thing, because everybody who comes to those things is a part of that show, is a part of the event. And so you know, that I remember, that was the next sort of stepping stone in our journey.
Well, and it was a major one, because what's hilarious, and I can look back at it now and I can laugh on that, is if you look at that sign, it's Friday, September 21st. And I was going through an extremely rough period in life. And I had explained some things to you. You were very kind with email conversations and a couple of phone calls, because you understood what I was going through. And I felt like a shell of a human being. Like, I had gotten to the point where I had lunch with my dad one day, and I was sitting there and I'm just like, I just don't care about anything, you know? And I didn't, not that I didn't care about my kids or anything, but I didn't, I was just a shell. And this was the second event. I did a painting trip 5 weeks earlier, and then I did this. And this was something that, after going through some really tough stuff and trying to chew through it, and you were, again, very gracious with just listening and giving me some, you know, giving me an ear and giving me a little advice on some stuff. And you were like, I want you to come out to this. It's Chuck's 100th birthday. Right? Not his 99th. It's not his 101st. It's what 100th birthday. I want you to come out, sit at my table for, you know, this event. Come out, just experience it. Just experience it. And I did. And I went out, and September 21st was the date that I had gotten married to my ex-wife. And so
did not know that. Okay. Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tequila. Woo! So, thank you, Kirk.
Go ahead.
So you talk about like going through something that's really rough, and then having that day where you don't really want to celebrate anything. Not that I could at that point. And I'm there in this place that is part of my childhood, that I met Eric Goldberg as one of my top 3 living animators, right? Chuck being my big dog, Eric Goldberg being my one of 3 like living animators to this day. And so I got to meet him, Bob Kurtz, you know, and June Foray, who, you know, I mean, and Leonard Malton, you know, and I got to gush on that dude. And so to go there and be a part of this and understand, like you're in my life, not just as someone that I know and whatnot. You were put in, and I met you in 2008 because what was going to happen in 2012, and God knew in his infinite wisdom that I was going to need some stuff to move through some things, and you were a part of that. And I am eternally grateful. And being there that weekend, dude, filled my soul. And I remember just, I'm like, where am I at? And you know, and I'm like, what? And it turns out, like, I just did, you know, a podcast with another dude, and who's a super awesome guy on This Means podcast, and he was at the same event, and we were sitting in the upper deck, like we must have been rows from each other, and we just figured this out last week. And so, you know, it just filled my soul. So that was a major thing, because you invited me into something that is something that I'd always wanted to be in. And then I was there, and I was getting to meet these people, and it gave me a rejuvenation. And I remember coming back, and one of my really good friends who I was working with at the time said, hey man, and he knew all the stuff that was going, he goes, you're back. That's it. That's all he said. He's like, just 2 words. He goes, you're back. And I'm like, I feel back. So that was
wow. That I hadn't really gotten a glimpse into that side of that. I mean, okay, I'll take that.
Man, we're getting deep in this.
We are. I didn't get my boot of liquor. Damn it!
Where is your giant?
I know. Yeah, but I'll have to get that later. Yeah, bring it on in. Come on, Kirk. So, all right, now we.
Yeah, he's like, there's a bitch that can deliver, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just I'll bring it. I'll go get it. All right, so now we fast forward a little bit to, your and one of the cool things, I mean, throughout this, you start dabbling with us with the Center for Creativity. I remember we were in San Diego, and you had stayed in touch with us as far as what we're doing, and you'd hear the stories of the Chuck Jones Center for Creativity and where we were going, and the exhibitions we were taking out with the Smithsonian and the programs that were going on. And I remember we sat there, and it must have been, again, I'm going to get the year wrong because you probably have it in your date book exactly what it was, but I got to figure it was about 2014 or 15 that we sat down right next to the gallery on Fifth Avenue, and you're like, I got to figure out how to bring this here. And we had done the Blackwing experience and the Chuck Jones T-shirt, and all that kind of stuff with the pegboard and whatnot. And so you are now, starting to go, okay, well, I want to influence my community. And so we start talking about how that could work and how we could work together and whatnot. And then in the meantime, your design and creativity stuff, for businesses and even the state of Illinois. I mean, and this is where I'm just like, dude, I picked the right horse. I mean, I knew you were good, because I mean, growing up here in California, everybody talks about the creative directors and the creative agencies out in Chicago being the best in the world, and everybody goes there to do that. And so all of these agencies are vying to do the bicentennial logo for the state of Illinois. I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, 200-year celebration, and you win the whole dang thing, and you're not even wearing a suit when you meet the governor. No. I mean, that.
No. You know what I'm wearing? I'm wearing that Chuck Jones peg strip T-shirt over some European print shirt with my cuffs rolled up and all the jewelry on. There we go. Look at that. That is pretty awesome. I mean, you're standing there, and Ben is just going to be who he is, because I love that about you, that I'm not going to fit into somebody else's peg hole. You know what? It is going to be you. What's hilarious about that is, so that was done at the Capitol, right? In the Capitol building, that's where Lincoln stood when he was addressing the Illinois Congress. And I got to see his desk and stuff. They gave me a tour of the place, and Lincoln stood up there those many years ago. And so, yeah, right. And then there's me. And they're like, wow, did we ever lessen the importance of this?
Hey. Yeah. It's important. And you got to be a part of that path of that place. So all of the history and whatnot, and you're now part of that history. And I think it's very appropriate that you're a part of that. And so as we evolved through this, I mean, and I know you've always been a huge fan of many of the artists that we have represented, I mean, Mike Kungle years ago, and then people like Dan Bowden and Daniel Killen and Bob Elias and all these guys that we have represented over the years that do these, whether they're tribute or homage or whatever it is, and Chuck always wanted people. They're like, well, why are these guys playing with Chuck's characters? Well, it's like, well, that is what Chuck wanted, is for people. I mean, he created the characters, and no one's going to do them exactly the way he did, but he gets to then pass it along to new generations so that artists will get to play with those characters, but in their style and in their way. They get to bring who they are and utilize Chuck's history with it. And so, and again, years fade in all over the place. At some point, to be honest, it was a little bit out of the blue. You sent me a painting, you sent me an image and said, hey, you know what? I love what all of these artists are doing. Is that something that we might be able to do someday?
Yes. And you said,
that's the actual paint. That's the one, that's the image you sent me. So
my all-time favorites, Rabbit Fire.
Tell Rabbit Fire. That's literally what I was reading in Chuck-a-Muck, Rabbit Fire. I mean, there's a script there anyway. So, so you tell me a bit about that first body of work. I mean, that you started with, because I mean, the stripes, it was very different than anything I'd seen before. So how did that come about? What influenced that as a first with the characters?
And it gets into what we're going to launch with Conquer Earth tonight and the mashup series that we're going to show a couple things with. There's when I was working at the bagel shop and eating my weight in payroll. Yeah, it was delicious. And we would get these Arizona iced tea bottles in, and back in like the 90s, like Peter Max was doing Arizona iced tea bottles. And that's the first time I ever saw Peter Max stuff, like the color, the vividness, and all the stuff. And I'm like, oh man, I love that guy's art. So I kept a couple of Arizona iced tea bottles. And I have always been a fan of Al Hirschfeld. I love his line work. It's just glorious to me. And so I'm like, there's this style, and I was playing around with stuff, and I'm like, and it has to deal with like punchy like colors and gradient stripes, and which reminded me of some Peter Max kind of just color, and then the line work where like thick to thin and line and all this stuff. Like an Al Hirschfeld, but maybe a little bit more complex. But I love the line work and I love the color. So I'm like, that's something that just kind of came through. And that's how this stuff started up. And I'm like, I can do the characters in a way, and then this stripy style, and I still do it today, is something that just I love, and I still love it. Like I love that mix of color and line work.
That's awesome. So tell me, so now Scott just put up a little.
That's the first one. That's the first time he's ever debuted as steampunk, and that was like 5 years ago, 6 years.
That was a long time ago. So I mean, go ahead. So did you just share that out there? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's focus on that steampunk piece, because that was actually done for a Red Dot auction originally. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was a groundbreaking. I know you've always been a Marvin fan. I mean, and so yeah. Hello. It's always been okay. Well, what character you want to do? And the first thing out of your mouth is, I want to do Marvin. I'm sorry. At a creativity season, Chuck Jones big draw. No, you're the guy who wants to do the Marvin helmets out of tinfoil. No, I want to do the Marvin Martian everything. And so very appropriate. And that thing, was gone in an instant. And at the fundraiser, and then it became an addition, and it was sort of the beginning of me starting to go, wow, and it was an eye-opening effect. And so then your next sort of aha moment, my aha moment for you, was when you started doing the more painterly images, like the Roadrunner Coyote, and Scott, I don't know if you have that, yeah. So these things blew my mind when I first started seeing them. And I'm like, you've always been graphic in my head, and that you've got these incredible lines and a lot of definition and a lot of detail that are going on in there. But all of a sudden, dude, you can paint. I mean, that is serious stuff. That literally, I mean, that thing right there, the way that everything moves together, and the textures and the colors and the motion of it all. And there are not a ton of people, especially with, that understand the characters as well. That, I mean, Chuck was unique in that regard, that he could paint and he could, animate and do the characters and all that kind of stuff. But, I do know that if Chuck were to see what you're doing with the characters in this painterly way, he would be like, yeah, you just do what you're doing. I guarantee it, because I know that he appreciates that thing right there.
Oh, dude.
Is like that literally took, I mean, let alone the coyote's breath away. That took my breath away. I mean, because it's such a story. And so each of those paintings that are done in that style, I was just, again, blown away. And then it seems every time we turn around, something is changing, and you're surprising me, which is always a good thing, because I love being surprised by especially. And Chuck used to do that as well. He'd be doing something, and then he would come in on a certain day, and he'd like throw some drawings or throw some pastels or throw some watercolors down, and I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew it was all there, but you're still doing it, and for you, in my book, it was like, wow, I didn't know that was part of what you brought to the table. So, then COVID hit, and that was a couple of years ago, obviously, and things changed a lot. I mean, obviously, with each of our businesses and whatnot, and you became, host of Creativeside Chats after, the first one. It was I mean, because I hosted, I think, one or two of them, and I'm like, yeah, you know what, Ben's way better at it. So, I mean, if literally I could have done this, I would have had you host you, and it would have been a much better show. So,
this dynamic works quite well.
Yep. So, so as we're evolving, and you tell me again, time in certain ways kind of all mushes together. When did you start using the colored pencils? I mean, the Prismacolor stuff, because again, I just saw them and I'm like, what is that?
So I got into like, first of all, there's a difference between like colored pencils. There's a difference, right?
Yeah.
And a soft core colored pencil, you can use kind of like I use oil paints a bit, right?
Okay.
Where if I put down a dark color, I can actually go on top with a lighter color and I can bring that up, which you can't always do like you got to work light to dark. Well, this I can kind of mix in between. And I love working on like press board or textured paper, which textured paper kind of acts like canvas. And when COVID hit and everything shut down and we were, figuring things out and what do you do and how do you pivot and all that kind of stuff, I did a thing called Art Drop. And I did one to start. And I'm like, you know what? It's all sucking right now, and we're not out, we're not meeting with people, that kind of stuff. And so I did one little sketch and I hid it at my buddy's restaurant. And I did it because I wanted to benefit like his, like go get pickup and or take out from here.
Yeah.
Right? And it's free, right? I hid it at his restaurant, so people had to go around, and somebody, like, I posted it and then they found it and they got all excited and they grabbed it. And I'm like, oh, all right, that's cool. Somebody got excited about that. And it was colored pencil. And that was when I'm just kind of playing around with some stuff because I had some extra time on my hands. And so I went through and I went through and I started doing, like, I'm like, you know what? We're gonna do this thing for like December because it's cold here and I don't like cold. And, and it's still COVID season. So I'm like, I'm gonna do the 12 art drops of Christmas. And I did two. Did I do two a day? Yeah, I think I did two a day, or something to that effect. I did 12 art drops. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, I did these 12 art drops, and I did colored pencil on paper, and I was starting to experiment with this on 9x12, and I would hide them at various restaurants and locations and friends of mine and stuff like that, and then I would post. Kirk got one. Oh, that was it. It was two sketches per drop, and the rule was you keep one and then you gift one to somebody else. So you've gotten something fun. Now I want you to bless somebody else. And so I was like, Bruce, I am moving to New York. And so that's where the colored pencil thing kind of really started. And I'm like, oh, I love working in this medium. And people really took to that and that too. And there was an excitement about it. I was really enjoying like figuring this medium out as I kept growing with it. And I'm like, oh, we're gonna do some stuff. Like, I love this. It's freaking awesome. I love what Daniel Killen does with colored pencil. And I'm like, I was just fascinated by it. And that's where it kicked. And so
that's awesome.
12 art drops kicked in this thing of like, let's do this for the gallery.
So I mean, obviously, you've done a number of editions on Canvas with your the painterly stuff, the other things that are behind you and whatnot, and then these things start. But you decide that Marvin Martian has to be front and center. Now, what what is it that I mean, if it were totally my show and I'm not producing it, so I'm only the glitz and glam right here, I would have played Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century in its entirety right now.
Yes.
But we're not going to do that.
We could.
I know, but everybody can play that cartoon in their mind right now, because I know that there was, parts of that cartoon, and we've talked about that cartoon over, and I want that scene, I want to focus on this, I want the ship, I want all these different things. And so you came up with this idea a while back, and just, this Conquer Earth that you've been playing with. So let's talk a little bit about how that started and where it's going.
So we did Marvin Madness, right?
Yep.
So we did a Marvin Madness thing. They're like, hey, we're doing Marvin Madness. Could you do some stuff for Marvin? And I'm like, yes, I could. And the steampunk thing had always fascinated me. I really loved it. I wanted to get back into that a little bit. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to do Marvin Madness, let's have the pieces tell a story. Let's have something to it. So the first piece I did, this is the collector's mini print for tonight, right?
Ooh,
so
yep.
Everybody who purchased, like whatever, they grab something, they get one of these. And and this was the image though that started it. And it was steampunk Marvin. He's got that bubble pipe, and then this is the first time I put canine in something. And in steampunk, and he's got like the Martian maggot is now the original, like this Zephyr with the stuff in it, steampunk. And I'm like, okay, look, man, Planet X blew up, right? The whole shaving cream atom thing, which clearly I don't use a whole lot. and I'm like, and I'm like, there's got to be something more to this. And so I did one more sketch to that, and it was like the planets laid out on Marvin's desk. He's in his ship. He has a screen on it. It's Duck Dodgers and steampunk, and he's claiming Planet D, right? And I'm like, yeah, I think we're onto something. So Marvin Madness to me was more about like, could we tell a little story on something? And so I'm like, Chuck inspired me on numerous ways. One of the many ways was how him and Mike would write, right? And you read through Chuck and Muck, Chuck Redux, right? They did stuff that was funny to them, right? It entertained them. And if it entertained, they didn't write down, right? They didn't write toward people. They wrote stuff that they thought was funny, that they thought was entertaining. And I'm like, I got something. I think it's kind of funny. I don't know. And I'm like,
okay.
why, like this mutually assured destruction of Planet X, there's got to be something to it. Why would Marvin like go on? Like, why are they going after the shaving cream? They don't explain that in Planet X. I'm like, well, we're going to explain that. And what always gripped me, and it's still hilarious, is Cadet as Duck Dodgers is drawing this giant thing of how to get to Planet X, and Cadet's just like, why don't you follow the planets, right? And I'm like, and so I thought afterwards, after that Marvin Madness series, I'm like, I'm gonna pitch this. I'm gonna pitch this series. And I remember, like, I called Robert, right? I love Robert Patrick. Robert, if you're watching, love you, miss you. And I'm like, hey, so I have this idea. And there's like 30 some pieces to it, but hear me out, right? And I'm like, so Marvin, right, is on like Planet X. He's gonna conquer Earth because he's pissed that Duck Dodgers, like he blames Duck Dodgers for blowing up everything, and he wanted that shaving cream animal. Why did he want it? Did you know that Martians grow facial hair like mad, like Scott Ryder's beard? I didn't know. I didn't know that, and they do. And so like he was gonna corner the market, right, in Mars and then on Earth. He was going to corner the market. This shaving cream empire, that's how he was going to conquer Earth, until Duck Dodgers got involved and blew the whole thing up, right?
So you're telling me that Marvin Martian is only the way he is because he shaves constantly with the aluminum Fosdex atom?
That's it. That's it. And it's and like it's just so. As this series develops and we go through the planets, you're going to notice that Marvin's face starts changing a little bit. Because it happens. So if he can't shave, I don't know. So I was like, I think I think this is it. Like, and I want to set it in the steampunk era. And Marvin couldn't go. He went up against Duck Dodgers 1-on-2, essentially with Cadet, and he failed. So he's got to bring in a team. Like, there's this thing, right? But in this team on things, there's always an antithesis to it, right? The action reaction. Duck Dodgers and Cadet aren't going alone at. They're going to bring in the other character that's faced off against Marvin, right? Which is Bugs Bunny. So I'm like, we have 3 heroes: Bugs, Duck, Dodgers, and Cadet. And we have 4 villains. And the reason we have 4 is Marvin came in and he was like, he's got his trusty sidekick, which is K9, right? It's his loyal subject to do whatever, right? You need one of those. You also need kind of like a brainiac, a genius, right? To invent these things, to build this weapon, and where are we going to get stuff? Well, who's the biggest super genius in the universe? Wile E. Coyote, right? And so I'm like, he's gonna
super genius,
right? Who has the I guess the only access to the unlimited Acme catalog.
Yeah.
And so and then it's not enough to have that. You need some muscle, right? Like, you got to get some stuff done. You need some protection. You need stuff moved. Gossamer, like, that's the biggest dude out there, right? So you got those 4 guys. Like, he's formed this team, and they are going to every single planet to harvest some element in there to build this machine, like this thing, this overall arched plan to conquer Earth, because he's going to get it one way or the other, or so he thinks.
Okay, so you start doing these drawings. You're playing with the modeling. I saw Chuck, the byproducts when he would develop something. So you start kind of imagining what it could be. You start laying out a design. You play with the characters and how they're going to interact. I mean, we've talked about before, that you've got to figure out what's going to look right with the interaction between the characters. And then you've got these soft core pencils. Basically I mean,
it's like butter
once you start, though, you don't get to go back. I mean, It's like a watercolor. You're committed. And so, I mean, it is not something you go back in with an X-Acto knife and go, oh yeah, let's scrape that off. We're going to do it. You are in, unlike acrylic or oil, which you can, do something with. And Chuck always said it was the most difficult thing, because, you gotta commit to it. So, I mean, when I look at the detail, and, maybe Scott, you can put up just one of the details. Maybe Ben, you can pick out which one to share, a close-up of what that detail looks like. I mean, I'm so impressed. So tell us what this is from.
So this is from, man, what planet is this from? I have it on my desk. Planet E. That's from Planet E. The Aquanetium. Yes. So aerosolus particles. So we'll get to that planet and the meaning behind that. We're gonna go through each kind of planet. There's a story behind each planet, what they get. So in this is that you'll see the size, because I'll hold one up for you. But some of this is super small, like as far as detail wise goes. And yeah, if you don't nail it on the first time, I can't just erase the thing and go back over it. It doesn't quite work that way. So I lay down my drawing. I've got a non-photo blue pencil. It's what I do all my pre-sketches for the underdrawings, and then I go ahead and layer on with colored pencil.
That is, I mean, the detail work in such a small format is impressive. And so, okay, Planet A. Let's go through the planets, and I mean, we might as well just tell this story, because you're not even halfway done yet.
No. I'm the first third in.
So I mean, this is a delicious episodic season by season that is going on, and everyone is an evolution, a change, a different part of the story, and I'm loving where this is headed.
So this is the first time that I've seen something kind of like this. Like, this is a story, and instead of telling the story in an animated format, we're telling the story in a fine art format. And it's a whole thing. There will be an art of book at the end that has this whole thing that wraps out. And each cover represents some like moment in that planet where he goes to, pull what he needs to in. So in that, let's start with Planet A. Now, I happen to have the AP because it got printed and I was able to stretch it.
Okay.
And so this is the first visual of it. So here is planet A,
Ooh.
right? And this is the Pop Mentos particle. Now, what's special about Pop Mentos? For one, like everything that I'll go through has something that whatever, it has some connection to me. And my son, my oldest son, Aiden, he loves playing with chemistry stuff and whatever, right? Got Mentos and Diet Coke when Christmas.
Yeah.
I think it's a Christmas gift. And they're like 5 bottles of Diet Coke and 15 packs of Mentos. Have fun, right? And if you're going to use like an explosive element that can give you some propulsion, have you ever seen Mentos go off in Diet Coke?
Oh yeah.
Right? This is chemistry right here, people. This is
yeah.
So in Planet A, like Marvin's going after something and he needs something with a propulsion element to it, right? As he's building this thing. So he goes to the like Planet A is all about the Pop Mentos particle. And you have these wonderful soda bottle shaped mountains in the background that have grape soda because sun-kissed grape soda, one of my all-time favorites, right? And so we have, let's just say it's sun-kissed grape soda without copyright infringing on something. And they're bottling this up, right, to take it on because that's what they have to do. And he's picking these little Mentos off the trees, right? And so he's got this container and they pop these in. It's all steampunked out, right? And it's got the little latches and it tells you when it's full. Well, the heroes are there to thwart things. He's never going to get everything that he needs, right? He'll get some of it, but he will never get all of it, which leads to his demise at the end. And so you've got a good old laser fishing rod with Dodgers coming in and just roping that. And he's looking down like, oh crap, right? Because one's already hit the grape soda. Something's going to happen. I'm not sure.
Not sure what.
But this is Planet A, the Pop Mentos particle.
So the originals are the same size as this canvas, right? They're 12 by 18s.
For the APs, yes.
But the original paintings that you did are the 12 by 18.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, on the fine art paper, right? And I know that those are very they're pretty much gone, as what I understand. I mean, as far as the originals go, but the collections are in 2 different versions. One is this artist proof version, which I haven't even seen it in person yet. I know. What are you doing back there?
Every AP gets a remark.
Ooh, on the back, nice.
And I go full figure. So
okay, all right. So you're gonna be going at all the APs. Now the look at the side though. The actual stretcher bars that we're gonna use are gonna be 2-inch bars. I know you didn't do that. I know, it's all good.
I stretched I haven't hand stretched a canvas since high school. And
you did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, you'll get a 2-inch, not a 1-inch. But
yeah. So, but that is, and then the signed and numbered edition is a paper version that will for the portfolio set, you'll get a portfolio that they'll go into. I suppose if you had a crate, you could put all of the ones in the canvas in there as well, but I'm not supplying the crates. The crates are too big for me to transport. So, but I think that would be kind of an Acme crate thing, don't you think? I think that'd be kind of fun. Yeah, I know. There's something there. But, now the sets are available, but we don't even know what's coming yet. I mean, you've got A through I. Why don't you hit B, C, D, and I get lost after that, so tell me where you're headed.
So
go ahead.
We're going to go B through I tonight, right?
Okay.
So we're going to go B through I. And what I love about this is and this is what I love and my inspiration from Chuck.
Yep.
Dudes are just making stuff up, right? And it brings me to like Avengers Infinity War, where they're talking about Nidavellir, right? And and they're like, well, that's a made up name as location. Thor's like, well, all words are made up. I'm like, yes.
There it is.
So we're going to go through B through. All right, I've got it here, but Scott, if you want to take it on the
Scott,
screen.
if you want to just go through one at a time, you can see it on there, but you can hold it up as well, because and you talk about it as you're going through it. So that is just so cool. So tell me about this scene.
Planet B is my wife's attempt to kill me through my neighbor's cooking. And they're after the liquid fire element, right? Which is what this is, because you need something in like, for ignition, things like that, right? Something that's going to explode some stuff. And that we have these, my wife loves to garden, and she had these Hungarian peppers, right? That we didn't really know how spicy they were or whatnot. And let me tell you, when they're at their hottest, they turn orange. Good to know. And so we have all these pepper plants and tomato plants and all this kind of stuff, and it's delicious. And so we have more than we could eat, so she gave some to my neighbor. Well, my neighbor makes this ratatouille, which is delicious, right? And so he gives us the spicy version and the non-spicy version. Now, I don't know what the spicy version tastes like, but he uses the Hungarian peppers. By the way, he doesn't know how spicy these things are either. I don't know how many he used, but let me just tell you, my eyeballs were sweating. I wasn't crying. I wasn't crying. My eyeballs were sweating. When have you ever had your eyeballs sweat?
That goes a far place. Yeah, I'm sure everything else was sweating too. So
everything else was sweating, but my eyeballs were like, we're checking out of here. So Planet B is
all right.
In the top. The forwarding is Daffy's attempt here to he's coming in with the Pepto cannon, because you need Pepto-Bismol after this. And Bugs has 2% milk bombs. So there's udders on the little bomb that he's throwing, and there's the 2% on it. And that's how you quell the fire of the liquid fire element. And you can see Wiley is just pounding that button as fast as he can to get every little drop out, because that can's going to get a lid. And then you've got Marvin holding up the umbrella as he's going to try to withhold the Pepto cannon.
That's so awesome. All right, tell us about C, since we're making our way through.
Planet C is the dry ice planet, aka
I love this.
And man, are we in for cocktails tonight? So this comes off the story of dry ice. You need a certain element right now. Engines are getting too hot. You need to cool things down, right? You got to be careful how you're doing stuff. You're coming out with a multi-pronged attack. And the dry ice particles are found in these bars, if you will, right? That's where it kind of combines. So these guys go out, and in a glorious fashion, as all in Chuck's films they do, they put on these disguises, and all Cadet needs is this $12 blonde wig, right? And he puts that on, and he's serving them all, right? And they are getting hammered, and this is his way to inebriate them, right? And then take off with what they need. Now, here's the little tidbits in here. So that's Chuck's portrait, right?
Yeah. Nice homage. I love the tribute.
Homage to, and then you see the 2 martini glasses up by Chuck. That was for his martini lunches, right? And so as you move down, Marvin has the margarita, right? And then Gossamer has the giant margarita, which is what I've got here tonight. But on the counter, passed out, is Wiley Willie Ito Coyote. Goes back to the story of when he got hammered after his first 2 martini lunch, and I don't know if he got through 2 martinis. And then
I don't think so.
Out on Chuck's couch. So in this case, he is passed out on Chuck's bar table, and he's got 1 martini in the hand with another one down. So that's the dry ice particle.
Love it. Yes, the Wild Ito Coyote.
Yes.
All right, let's go to D. Let's go to Planet D.
All right, so Planet D, we have Helios Hevonium, or Hevonium Helios, right? Which are lead balloons. So you go through, and you've got to make casings for stuff that you're going to drop, right? Well, the way to do it is you go after these things that just kind of grow, but they're heavy. So as you can see, Marvin is harvesting these things. They're hooked up to his ship. And in with his rocket shoes comes Daffy, because the demise of what Marvin wasn't thinking, right, is he's just going to snip the cord. And you've got the Acme jet blower held by Cadet. He's going to blow him clear off the cliff, right? Because these are only found in these lead balloons are only found in high places, right? Of course, they only would be. That's the only place you can get them. And he is going to plummet to his demise.
Love it.
Yes,
love it.
He's going to snip the cord.
Yeah, I love the machine that Cadet has down there. That
almost like a
just so much detail. That's just awesome. All right, we're going to E. I mean, we're halfway through what you've already done, which is an amazing thing. All right, so talk to me about E.
Planet E is the what did I call this one? The Aquanetium aerosolis, right? Which is Aquanet. It's basically hairspray. And so it grows on this planet where they have these these capsules that they capture them in, right? And you're supposed to be able to spray this into something. Well, Marvin doesn't know that, and he accidentally sets one off. And of course, on an Aquanet planet, you would have these little comb tufts like flowers. So it's little tufts of hair, if you will, that grow on these little flower plant, these combs that grow out of the ground. And he hits this thing, and you can see his brush is already starting to stick. And then, of course, Gossamer's fur is just a wreck. Like, that is solid rock fur right there. And he's going to be frozen in one thing, because you need this for like a really good adhesive. So the easiest way to grab these guys up and do all Bugs has to do is come in with a mega pick, right, comb, and it makes it the easiest thing to grab, because there's no fine hair to go through. Yeah, all he has to do, just like a pitchfork and hay, he's got this covered.
Don't try this at home.
No, do not try that. That's my throwback to the 80s.
Yeah, we're at Planet F now.
So Planet F. Planet F is what did I call this one? The luminous, there's an actual physical, like, or the scientific name for a firefly. And that's what this is, because they need bioluminescence, right? In order to generate some light as they're going through with what they're building in the machine. And this is my homage, one, to hunting fireflies in the backyard with my kids, which I still do to this day.
Yeah.
My son has accidentally squished one, and then you get the stuff on your fingers and it still glows and he feels sad. And that doesn't happen very often. And my love of Guardians of the Galaxy. So
yeah.
in the first Guardians, you have Groot, and he, to protect everybody, he makes this big shell, and then he creates these little fireflies, right, that come out, these little lights. So in this, I have Big Groot from Guardians 1. I have Teenage Groot from the when they were doing Infinity War, and then I have Baby Groot there at the bottom left-hand corner with a little sprout. So I have the 3 versions of Groot, and that's how these little fireflies, that's where they congregate around. Well, Marvin, in capturing these things, like we all do, we put them in little, tubes and whatnot, and he's running away. He's pissed off Mama, and he didn't realize that the Mama Firefly comes as big as she does. And so Dodgers is riding in like a horse, and you can see like the connection. He's already roped himself a coyote, and we're going down. So Wiley's probably not going to make it. Marvin might make off with 1 or 2, but he's certainly not going to make off with the whole lot.
All right, Planet G. Oh, I love that. Love the detail down there. All right, Planet G.
Planet G, the actual like technical name for like what is it? Glucose something, or I forget what it is, and it's chewing gum, right? And I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I loved zebra striped gum. Zebra striped gum was just so awesome, and I would chew it. I would love it. It would be delicious. And so they got to go on this, because you need like something like what do you do when you need, like, oh, put every film, right? Just give me your chewing gum, I'll stick it together. Do you know how many times I've stepped on hot chewing gum on the ground? So this is part of my love of using chewing gum in the films as an adhesive, and part of my hate of stepping on chewing gum in the summertime. And so in order, like, these things pop up from these bubbles, so it's kind of like a bouncy, pillowy thing. And they're stuck to each other, because all Bugs has to do is he calls in his little drones that are chattering teeth, which chew up the gum and spit it on the ground.
That is awesome. Yeah, that's not a fun feeling. Been there many times. No.
Yes, not at all.
All right, H. We're going to H.
H. Euphoteron attractium, aka the horseshoe magnet. So little did you know that horseshoe magnets actually grow on little rods. You know, the ones that you throw them around when you play horseshoes?
Yeah, of course. Yep.
So this planet, they grow on them, they start to mature, and they have this obviously magnetized element to them, which you have these gorgeous, like reminiscent of the Southwest, American Southwest, where you have the arches and stuff, is where you have these magnet-like structures. Well, Wiley thought it would be brilliant to bring in the Acme I-beam, which is steel, and then you could just collect all these things and suck it up like little, like a little magnet. Well, all Bugs has to do is literally like just start chucking these things, and they end up trapping themselves on this. and that's how they get them. So you got Wiley with 1 hand and 1 foot up. He's not doing anything. And Marvin is secured very firmly to the beam with a very maturely grown Euphoteron attractium.
That is just so cool. Now, not the last one, but the last one for now, Planet I.
Yes.
I mean, where we're at today, this is just spectacular. Tell us the background.
Iradium. Iradium is only found in gamma grapes, and gamma grapes come from my love of the Hulk. So in this version of things, right, Marvin's looking for something that, like, why is he so angry all the time? This is what he chews on, right? Gamma grapes. It's kind of what fuels the anger, except for it's never quite happened to him what happened to Cadet. And so as they think, Cadet's like chewing on whatever coming after these guys, you can see it coming off his mouth a little bit. Canine's there trying to pull him back. It's not, he's going full on pork smash, and Gossamer's just taking it to him. So they're not going anywhere. This did not work out well. And in true Hulk fashion, some of the clothes expand with Hulk and some of them don't.
Some of them don't.
Right? And so the little hat on his head, that doesn't, but the pants have to, because that would just be, not PG-13. And and then you've got like his chest fat. So he went full on pork smash with the gamma grapes and the Iradium atom.
Love that. Love that. And I mean, the best part of this is that we're hardly a third of the way through, and we're making our way. There's so much more story that comes along with this. So now you kind of gave me a glimpse of, because you're like, okay, I want people to, you said, I want homes for these things. I mean, which is what my mother started years ago, is, find the artwork wherever it is, whether it's in the heart of a great artist or in somebody's basement or attic, and find a home that loves it. It's like an adoption agency. And so the idea that people are adopting these works of art seems so appropriate, because they find new homes. But you're the guy who wants to give fun things away, because when we're doing the Center for Creativity, you're always about, look, if we just give, we're going to it's going to be perfect and everybody will feel good about it. Now you have created a couple things that you get to own if this becomes part of your home collection. And I don't know, I'm so out of the loop, I don't know if this is out there somewhere, but share what you have created. I mean, you did this without permission, but you know what? It's fine. I know. I get it. So
perfect time for good. Thank you very much, Kirk. Yes.
Well, yeah. Take a sip. Go ahead.
That's your excuse. You have to drink that.
Yeah.
It's because of the.
Yeah. I never saw it coming. So, I mean, the fine art print card is one that you get to, that you showed before. This guy is one. If anybody collects anything tonight, I mean, basically it is, you get that with that, and you're signing them, and I mean, it'll go with everything. So it's an awesome, that image in itself is an awesome extra, and that goes with regardless of the types of things that you collect tonight. Yes. But then for the Conquer Earth, you have done some cool stuff. Now tell me about what you've created, and two, what people get to choose.
So I look at things when I do this stuff as like, what would I love as a collector, right? And who doesn't love Fabio? I love Fabio, and like that dude makes some wicked awesome pins, and I'm like, yeah, those are awesome, and I love pins, and I make some pins and whatnot, and I'm like, if I was a collector, and when I'm collecting things, I like stuff that's unique to that series. So where that collector card, you could get anything tonight, you pick up whatever, and you get that, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be Conquer Earth. This, however, is specific to Conquer Earth. And so what I did was, I'm like, I'm gonna do this for anybody who snags something, because like I would love this, and I think this is special. So I have a series of 7, all 7 characters have their helmets, hats, all this stuff done in an enamel pin.
That is just so cool.
Yeah, so there they are. You've got every single hat in there, and like I collect pins, and I do all this kind of stuff. I'm like, I would love this. So this is my gift to anybody who picks up and snags something tonight from the Conquer Earth series. And I think there's, levels on what you get and how many you get to pick, if whatever.
Yeah.
I'll let handle that. Yeah.
So you get to, and as I mentioned before, I mean, the Conquer Earth is a series that will be collected, and we've already got people who are picking out their personal number of the editions that come as a portfolio. And so, you know, that from A to Z, and you don't even know what J through Z are yet.
No.
But people are already like, I trust, you know,
Yes.
I know that I'm going to, because I will end up with the entire series. And so, you know, I already know in our game room where I'm going to put 2 canvases in the game room.
Yes.
And the cool thing is that when I feel like it, I'm going to put different letters in there when I think I want to display something differently. And I can't wait exactly how Planet X gets solved since it's been blown up. But I know it's coming. I know it's coming. And it just occurred to me that, I mean, you're doing an original for each one, and I can't I'm sure that someone will send me a note if there's any originals left. I know that many of them sold already today, but you know, I'm gonna put something out because I trust you that that if no one else does it by tomorrow, I am going to personally reserve the original. I'm going to own the original with K because of my last name, Kausen. And I just need that. I mean, there are certain things that I need in life. And every time that I host one of these, Kimberly goes, and where are you going to put that? And literally, I am like, no, that's mine. And so I'm putting it out there that I'm going to take K if it's not gone by tomorrow, if somebody else doesn't pre-reserve the K original. But I am going to end up with all of them. And Kimberly's going to be like, well, we're going to need a bigger game room. And I'm like, yeah, that's very true. So, I mean, kids are leaving all the time. I mean, it seems like everything could go into that. We're literally thinking about changing our living room into a game room because that's what we do. We play. And then I can put all the artwork I want in there. So anyway, that I think is going to be awesome. I think somebody just asked for a link in the chat session. So whatever link that you're looking for, someone please throw it into there. That may be for the Conquer Earth series. Yeah, that's awesome. So oh, there they are. You got links coming all the time. It's in the chat now. But this is an amazing series, and I love what you're doing here with a little homage to, you know, different genres. I mean, I know you're a huge sci-fi fan, you're a huge genre fan. It's not all of them, but there are certain ones that speak to you. And so tell me just a little bit about the ones as you're growing up. I mean, Looney Tunes, I know, you know, and Chuck, and, you know, and you get to play with those stuff, but now you're bringing in references to other genres and characters that are being developed that you admire. Tell me about that.
Which I already see Rob and Greg are putting in the chat, and they're like, Dex? And I'm like, getting to that. Yes, let's.
Yeah.
So Star Wars is a major influence on me, right?
Yeah.
I love Star Wars, and I'm a big nerd on it. My kids are big nerds on it. I have indoctrinated my wife into being a big nerd on Star Wars. And she's like a Baby Yoda fanatic. And Grogu, I know, Baby Yoda, whatever. And so there's something, you know, in George Lucas has mentioned this. He was influenced greatly by Chuck Jones, and he credits him for that. And so, like, there's certain things of this that just make sense in a mashup, where you look at something, you're like, I see where those worlds collide. And really quick, William, yes, they're in alphabetical order. And so, and I'll answer the second part to his question here in just one moment. And so, in the mashup phase of things, there were certain things that when they just click, and I'm a big Marvel fan, I'm a big DC fan. Batman is my ultimate favorite superhero. Thor is my second favorite overall. And then, you know, we get into Star Wars, which when Obi-Wan comes out next week, I'm probably gonna lose my mind. So when the Book of Boba Fett came out, there were certain things I'm playing, and I'm like, man, like seems like there's this thing in like Marvin, Boba Fett, Marvin, Mandalorian at first, and steampunk and this kind of stuff. And what's cool is guys have gotten them tattooed on themselves, which is and like that's a huge honor. Like I'm like, well, yes. And so in the mashup phase of things, when we get into like specifically Star Wars, it's this Book of Boba Fett and Marvin the Martian thing. And I'm like, as I started watching the series, I'm like, man, man, I see the design and things and how they would mesh. I can see it. I'm like, well, if I can see it, I'm going to draw it. So I started with one, and it's Porky, and I ended up, you know, doing this thing with Porky as one of the Gamorrean guards, because that totally makes sense. They're pigs, right?
Yeah.
And then Marvin in his, you know, in his Boba Fett armor, and he's at the bar with the droid, right? And somebody picked that up. Awesome. And then I'm like, but there's really like two, like I could do multiple things per episode, but I'm going to stick to two. Let's see if I can do two. And so I did a second one. And, you know, in the second one is him roasting a marshmallow. It's colored pencils because he was using his, it was how he got out of the Sarlacc pit. I'm like, it'd be funny if he roasted marshmallows. And so I started doing two per episode, right? And by the time I got to the second week, I'm like, all right, I'm doing a series. We're just going to call it right now. I'm going to do the Book of Marvin Fett series. And I'm gonna do two sketches. I'm gonna drop one on Wednesday, the day of the episode. I'm gonna drop another one on Sunday, and then I'm gonna have one complete image at the end that encapsulates it all. And so there are like these certain scenes that I was picking apart, and I'm like, oh, I want to do that. I'm like, I can see how that works. And so I did, and I just started doing it, and it went bananas. So, and when I say bananas, I'm not joking. Like I did 15, I think 10 sold within the first, there's only like 5 left, I think.
Yeah.
And I'll again, collector thing. I'm like, all right, if I was a collector, what would I want? So every person who like picked up an original got all 15 in a mini print of the whole thing, all 15 signed and numbered in the sequence that they came out with.
That's awesome.
So I'm like, I would want that as a collector. What would you want? Would you want that? I would totally want that. So I did it. And I'm like, let's just celebrate this because I'm having a blast with it. Greg, thank you, man. And so I went through and started doing these things, and it just kind of kept coming out. And I was shocked, genuinely surprised at the reaction, because it was getting picked up in Star Wars Facebook groups. It was getting reposted to like people's accounts. And I remember like just kind of doing a thing, and I would get people who would be like, I just saw you on this thing. Daniel Logan, who plays like Spinny, you did that for me. He was my buddy Steve here, who's going to model one of the decks coming up, was like, Daniel Logan, who plays the young Boba Fett in the prequels, just reposted your stuff. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. And it was from this Marvin Fett series. And so then I did one specifically with him in mind, which was this one, which was, it's a father and son kind of thing. There's all kinds of goody Star Wars references in here, right? And it was Django Marvin. So anyway, that was because of him. But this one account, I remember, like, we're over 500,000 impressions and likes across more accounts than I could possibly count, which and like tens of thousands of comments. And I was totally shocked. It just went off by itself. So there were things that came out, you know, of these sketches, and I was blown away. And I love the mashup stuff. And that's where it came. It was just,
well, you know, and it makes a lot of sense that that there's this confluence. And you said that George was inspired by Chuck and whatnot, but you know that there's, since 1977, when Star Wars first came out, a number of George's friends and followers and writers and whatnot have accused George of actually designing Darth Vader after Marvin's helmet. So, I mean, literally, he's been called out, and he's never necessarily denied it. So, I think there is a confluence of inspiration that goes through many of these genres. So that began with Chuck, and this inspiration of Marvin Martian and other characters that you're so brilliantly, showcasing here. I love this. I love that.
Dude, when I freaked out on this episode, I freaked out when the Hutts came out. I love Chrysanthemum in this. I'm like, Gossamer is totally Chrysanthemum. I freaked out when the Hutts came out, and I'm like, who would be? I'm like, the angriest little man ever, which is Yosemite Sam, the one that's got to carry these people. Right. And all I want you to see is the back of like Marvin Fett as he's facing off. And it was, I'm like, go ahead and make my day. And it just, there's certain parts of these episodes just really, and I love it. Like, I'm a fan at the heart of this kind of thing. And then you got, what are you going to do? Like, she dated a Jawa. What are they going out to? Well, you know, Mando Bugs has a restaurant. He uses a dark saber. and we do like the hollow hibachi table, and then and we got music in the background, like they're just having a great date night. And of course he has a margarita. This one, man, when they showed up with the Naboo fighter, I went out to his, like, I just went out of my mind, because I'm like, they're bringing in the prequels. In the back, what you can see is Baby Yoda on board, is the little sticker that's on the window above that. And I only did a teaser of this one. I love that they did this ship. And this is the first appearance of Mando Bugs when I was bringing him in, because I went nuts when they started introducing the Mandalorian.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're just, I loved it. Like, there were so many sequences of this, and I've got it.
So good.
There's only a few available, but still. But yeah, that plus all that, I loved it. Which leads me to the two big things tonight that I'm like, I can't not do a show like this. And oh yeah, there you go. Right? What are you going to order from the Acme catalog? I would totally order an Iron Man suit. Totally.
Of course.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're moving on to, you've been playing around with some different substrates, right?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't know about them until recently. Again, not necessarily approved, or either that or my team is keeping me out of the loop, but what am I going to say? Yes. Okay. That's basically what I say about everything. So
there goes Ben again. We can't.
I know. He's a little out of control, but we love what's going on.
Yes.
So talk about what you're working on, what these things are, and where they're headed.
So I got into acrylic paint markers, and I did one for Red Dot this year, and I did it in acrylic paint markers and loved it. And I love doing skate decks in different substrates, like you mentioned, right? Like different things. And I'm like, man, from the moment I started doing the Marvin Fett series, I wanted to do decks with these. And I'm like, I want to do decks with the Conquer Earth thing. I want, like there's stuff that I want to pull off that would just be interesting. And I'm like, what would the two things be? And I knew them. I could see them in my head before like they ever got down to paper. And I did one Marvin Fett, and then I did one Mando Bugs with the baby Grogu, Tweety. So Steve, can you do you mind grabbing the deck for me, please? Steve is also modeling the Bugs Bunny jersey tonight. Thank you. A rarity. So you can put on a helmet if you want to. Yeah, go ahead and put on the Mando helmet. I got Star Wars helmets. We might as well use the stuff because it has to get packed up tomorrow.
That's right. We'll talk about that in a second.
Go ahead and grab the Mando Bugs first, please. And then if you can see your way to, like, you just stand right there. You can go ahead and face. We won't use the other camera right now. We'll use this one. So this is
look at that. Look at that.
And this is
that
from
is
the last
crazy.
This is from the last scene in Book of Boba Fett where like Grogu's like knocking on thing with his little, with the little like controller knob, and he's like, okay, one more time. And then he hits the button, which he's about to hit there because he's going to go light speed, right? And so I'm like, I love that scene. And I'm like, the two of them together in a composition on a skate deck, to me, it has to fit the substrate. And that composition fit the substrate. And then below is the Jedi Temple, right? Which he obviously doesn't go to because he ends up with Mando. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. And, so
it's been months.
It's been months. So we've got the new Jedi Temple down at the bottom of the skate deck.
So cool.
And it's a limited color palette. Like I only have so many colors that I can use. It's not like doing oil paints and I got like 100 colors to pick from. There's like 12 to 20 colors. That's it. So I'm figuring out how I want to accent things, which colors I want to use for shadowing, stuff like that. It's a whole different process, and I freaking love it. So
dude, that is so awesome. That needs to go on a wall as well. I mean, that's just the perfect display of that. You're right. The design is unbelievable. The way the ears go and Grogu's up there, and it's just so good. So
little Sweetie was the perfect.
Yeah, I know.
So that I love that one. It's in my signature teal, which is the color that I usually use to like wrap my frames and stuff with.
Yep.
And then oh, Greg, this would look fantastic in your house. Absolutely. So I love Greg, and Greg and I are gonna hang out because Greg's in Florida and I'm going to Florida. So
nice.
let's get Marvin Mando Boba Marvin Fett. Oh, Max got the Marvin. Okay, honey, this is where the show gets weird and slightly dangerous as my children now put on the helmets. And
good. Yes.
Yeah, they've all got helmets. Poe Dameron, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. And,
Nice.
And then come on in this way. There we go. Right. Because Daddy has all the cool toys. So
yeah, you got the cool toys.
yeah, you don't need to drop the thing. It won't show the light right here. I need you to move just this way for me, honey. Thank you. All right.
Perfect.
Good, Steve. So I did the Marvin bet. Oh,
look at that.
His gaffy stick right at the end where he just takes it to Cad Bane. And so like this whole sequence and just how did I loved it. And I'm like, this to me is the composition for this. And then of course you have not Jabba's palace anymore. This is Boba's palace. So just like in the other one where there's the scene of like the significant scene of what the generation, that's what we have going on with the twin sons of Tatooine. So this is Marvin Fett in all his glory. And this one's called, and both of them have ... right? There's a pause. So the other one is okay. One more time. This is go ahead, make my day.
That's I'm almost speechless over the whole thing. I mean, it is that you keep taking Chuck's characters and doing such amazingly different things and all the inspirations coming together, and you're doing it so well. You know, just the little details of his eyes and his look, the pupils just right, you know, the way that he is looking at us with the right pose, his hands. And so no one does a better, you know, brush than you do. So when you get on it, and I tell you what, it's all coming together, and you're just beginning. So I mean, I do want to because you know now we're only half an hour over, which I'm extremely happy about.
I'm sorry, everybody.
I know. I didn't. I was told 2 minutes beforehand that okay, it's an hour show, and I went, what? You know, my response is that'll never happen, but that's okay. But you know, you are every time that something changes in your life, there's new growth, there's new artwork that comes out, there's new inspiration. You know, there's stuff you're doing with the Center for Creativity, stuff you're doing with the galleries. It's just continuing to grow and blossom. And you know, maybe part of this goes back to 2008 when I said, there's something here. And maybe I was just prescient. I don't know. I mean, it's possible that I doubt it. It's just a feeling of like, wow. And I would have never envisioned that all of this was. And so I'm excited about what the next chapters are, you know, that there are unfolding chapters, sometimes planned, sometimes, you know, not planned. And so, but you are, I've been watching from afar. I have not offered to come out and help you pack. But there's some changes in your world. And I know a lot of people already know about them because you're out talking about what's going on, but there may be a lot of people here who don't know. You're packing up.
Yes, this is what you see looks put together at the moment. What you don't see is coming off the walls, coming down. It's getting the pod literally. This is the last thing that happens in this studio. And tomorrow the pod shows up and I pack the whole thing up, and by Saturday this will be complete. And
that is amazing.
So it's been a wonderful period of time here. And what I wanted to say to everybody who's watching, and first of all, thank you guys for joining tonight and coming along for our jaunt and our chat and whatever. I love hanging out with Craig. I love talking about these things. And I love the fact that you guys spend your evening with us doing this. What I wanted to say was like, this is like, I'm moving to Florida in next Saturday. Everything. And I couldn't be more excited about it. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time. My family's excited about it. The opportunities there are immense, and what's coming on. And as more opportunities come up in this world of art that I've wanted to do since I was little, even though my path took me into it a little bit of everything, it taught me things. And this next iteration of stuff is going to be bonanzas, right? And what I wanted to say to anybody who's watching is, if you've taken part of anything here over the last I've been here 14 years doing this on my own. I've been in here in this studio for 8 years. Craig was out here eating Taco Bell at 1 o'clock in the morning, putting stuff together for a draw. You know, but if you've attended an event, if you've come out to an art thing, if you've taken part in Saturday morning cartoons and drawing, if you've just been friends hanging out in the studio, taking a look at whatever, just chatting, if you come to one of my movie nights on the big screen where we're screening whatever, if one of my New Year's Eve parties that are family friendly, you know, and doing all that kind, if you experience something here, whether it was in person, whether it was virtual, coming into one of these things, I just want to say thank you, because this place is special to me because of that. So it's really everybody.
It sounds like it's a barrel. 747.
Wow. I don't know
747.
where that sound came from. Someone's off mute. I like it. Yeah.
So I'm eternally grateful for everybody who has taken part of something here in whatever capacity it's been, because this is magical for me. And the question is, we're in Florida. We're moving to Inverness, Florida, which is about an hour north of Tampa, straight up, and about an hour from Orlando, an hour from Tampa-ish. And I just, Bruce, it was great to have you, and had all kinds of people dropping by. So this has been it's been awesome. This has been a dream since I was little, and it didn't, and the way it came about is not how I would originally thought. And I love it more because of what has happened. So it's a big change, and the big change is coming with some big opportunities on stuff, which I'm extremely excited about. And it doesn't start like 6 months from now or a year from now. It starts as soon as I get down there.
Yeah. And I think that is the exciting part every time. And first of all, I did not know that I met you when you were 28. Like, seriously? You didn't even have training wheels off by that point. Good Lord, I don't think anybody was 28 when I was in my 40s or 50s or whatever the heck it was back then. But every time we turn a corner together, there's something great that happens, whether it's in, Chuck Jones big draws with the NBA, or the baseball teams that we're doing, the Chuck Jones big draws around the country. And Chicagoland Chuck Jones Center for Creativity is going to continue. I mean, I know that is the case, that you've left and you're going to continue to manage it from afar, and it's not that far to get back and forth, and you've got a team there to propagate things. But, think about that you're going to Central Florida, and we get to do it all over again. And so there's going to be another impact. And there's a lot of great art and artist friends that are already down there that are welcoming you with open arms. And, that's one of the things when, as I said at the beginning, that you being an artist, appreciating Chuck as an artist means a lot. When an artist appreciates another artist for what they do, how they're executing it, what's coming out, and a lot of these guys, I mean, you've got, Fabio, you've got Rob Kaz, you've got, these guys are down there, and Tim Rogerson is down there. And it's not just that they're comrades, they're fans of yours. I know you're fans of them, but each of them is a huge fan, and many of them are already collectors of yours. And I know you're just like, I don't know how that happened, but it is, it is such a great thing and an honor that now it's only going to blow up. It's like when, the artist, when Chuck came out of art school and his dream was to, go to Paris, because that's what fine artists did. You went to Paris and painted, and, and so now this genre, the creativity that's going to bloom out of the interactions and the location of moving down there, and all the things we're going to do with the Center for Creativity. It's already committed that we're going to do another basketball big draw down there, is what I hear.
So, yes, and I'll say this, and this is a Chuck influence. Chuck was a big mentor to people. He gave of his time. He went and drew with kids in the hospital. He did all kinds of things that you would never hear about, because Chuck he never spoke those things on his own behalf. He just did those things. And he inspired so many people with that, which is why getting involved with the center to me was so important, because I want his legacy. His legacy is our legacy, and I want that to continue. And so the Chicagoland Center is going to stay. We're doing June 18th. We've got all kinds of stuff going on. And probably what will be the first, I'm going to do it again in Central Florida, because I believe as a professional doing what I do, it is part of my responsibility to work with others, inspire other people. We're like, we should be doing this as professionals. This is where it should come from. Chuck did this as well. Like there's people that did this before us. It's amazing. So I'm going to do a central.
That's awesome.
And I'm going to base it in Inverness probably to start. But our first most likely major event will be the Orlando Magic's G League team playing the Chicago Bulls, which is the Windy City Bulls, the Chicago Bulls G League team. And we're going to do a Space Jam official big one in Chicago, one in Lakeland, Florida. And I will be running the one down in Lakeland. My team will run the one in Chicago. And we will do this cross-promotional event. And it will kick off the Central Florida Center.
That is just awesome. That's later this year from right. Am I right?
Beginning
of next year.
Next year, probably. Yeah.
It's already the beginning of next year in my head, because we're already, it's just going so fast. So that is very exciting. Now, before everybody leaves and we kick everybody out, I see that there's lots of comments coming up. Somebody asked about a collaboration between you and Fabio. I mean, is that ever going to happen? What do you think? I mean, I'm not going to make you commit right now, but I think that'd be pretty cool. I think mashups, I mean, you've mashed up, different genres. It would be great. And back in 2008, when the recession hit, there were artists getting together because everybody was trying to figure out what to do at that point. And so there were artists that were collaborating together, doing works of art that were magical. And so I would love to see that with you and some other artists. How much fun would it be to collaborate with other guys and gals to come up with new stuff? So I think that has got to come. I'm not going to put you on the spot and say, it's got to happen.
Hold on. I can only say this, and this because if you heard the ding, that was Fabio texting me while we're doing this. And he said, hold on. Hey, am I allowed to say what your text said? Just yes or no on the thing. He'll do it quick. Hold on, there's the bubbles. Yes. Okay. So yes, the collaboration between Fabio and myself is going to happen.
You heard it here tonight. That's why you come to these things. Yeah.
We're on, baby.
I love when these type of things happen. So
it's good. I'm like,
yes.
Thank you, buddy, for letting me say that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that Fabio is out there listening, and I can never take your place, Fabio, because what happened last time between the two of you was more magical than anything else. But I do think that the magic that's going to happen in your life and our collaborations is going to be beyond any of our imagination. And I think that is what I'm so looking forward to. So once again, I mean, we are the Conquer Earth series is only starting to unfold, but I've got to get a bigger playroom to fit it all. I really do. It's going to
imagine all the phrases you could say when you're as you manipulate letters. Remember the magnet fridge,
yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the letters. I'm just going to arrange the canvas into words. What mood is it today? This mood. I don't know.
Yeah.
Tacos. I need one that just be what day is it? Tacos.
Tacos. I like it. Except,
TACOS. Thank you.
I like it. Any day that ends in Y is the day that I like. Yes. All right. Well, are there any questions? I know that there are comments coming up. We're going to take a couple questions. So fire away if you've got a question for Ben.
Well, there was one with William who he put are we doing them in alphabetical order? Yes, they're in alphabetical order. So
okay.
J next, and
yep.
move.
And then mine. And then mine.
Okay, you already have. And then he goes, if there are certain letters you are really looking forward to getting into, yes. And because I'm figuring out how things work in the story and what things are being developed for elements and stuff, there are certain things coming up. I get excited about each, know that each one that I get into, I'm like, oh, that's got to be it. And I'm pre-planning some stuff. And even though in my next batch, there's already some in the third batch that I know exactly what's going to happen. Planet X is making a comeback. and
Yeah.
but not the way you think. So
Okay.
there's just some things that are like, that I find, yeah. And all right, Darnell wants to ask a question. Yes, of course you can. So Star Trek.
So very entertaining evening, Ben, as usual. Thank you so much. I have a client that we have been looking endlessly for Marvin the Martian, looking for intelligent life, right? And of course, those cells have been long sold out. But with your brilliance and creativity, I'd love to see you come up with something with the catchphrase, looking for intelligent life. Anyway, just dropping that little seed with all your planetary exploration.
Challenge accepted. Challenge. I love that.
Because we just might, we might have a buyer on that one. So looking for intelligent life.
Absolutely. I'll have to keep my beard at a certain length that I can.
Yeah, I think you're there. So Greg just asked a question. Will there be a deeper dive after this? Greg, what do you mean a deeper dive? Or maybe you already understand what he's saying, Ben.
I'm not. Yeah, I would love to elaborate. Greg, elaborate on that if you could. Deeper dive into which parts, and then to Maria. Yes, we will be neighbors. We're open on the thing, and I know I've got Nathaniel, who I've had the pleasure of having as part of, like, working with him, a student as part of our Chuck Jones Center, who's on tonight. Thank you for watching, buddy.
Into each planet. Will there be potential revisits on the side to planets? Because I mean, obviously, every single planet is almost like its own episode, and so it seems like there may be. It may not be part of the portfolio, but will there be other ways that we go off linearly?
Yes. So, and first of all, thank you, Don. Don's awesome. Don Norwine, I love you, man. That guy, conversations with him are always blast. Yes, there is a deeper dive into things. Part of the book explains a little bit more of the story on how they develop, because this is a fine art journey, like an animated film done in fine art pieces. But there's some offshoots on stuff, and as I finish this series, there's already notes being put down and be like, well, what would have, like, why did that happen, and what was the consequence of this? So
somebody, let's see, Michael just asked if there's going to be a movie.
Okay, so Michael, first of all, love Michael, and I'm so glad you're on here. So Michael, I have played this movie in my head probably 100 times. And if there was ever an opportunity where I could turn this into like a 20-minute animated short film, like short subject film thing, dude, I know where it goes. I know where it goes. And like, I can see how it all comes together. And the climax at the end, I don't want to spoiler it, but let's just say that when Wiley programs this device, this thing to enact this whole sequence of events that conquers Earth, he does it at the beginning, right? Marvin changes, facial recognition changes, something happens because of it. Like there's a thing. And so yes, Michael, to answer your question, man, I would, Warner Brothers, if you're watching, I got plans.
All right. Well, we'll see what we can make happen over the years.
Like, if only there was someone there with connections. I don't know. I don't know.
They don't like me anymore, but hey, that's all right. All right. Well, it was an absolute pleasure being the host this time. I mean, I learn everything a little bit differently. I enjoy the time. I mean, whether it's on camera or off camera, I haven't seen you in person since last fall. Yep. Is that what it is? And so, and I probably won't see you again until maybe this fall. And a year shouldn't go by that we don't see each other in person, but it does feel like we get to be together when we do this. I've become so accustomed to, I know everybody's sick of it, but it does give me that feeling that we at least get to be together in a way, rather than just on a phone or just texting. And we do text a lot, which is always good.
Yeah.
But I will say, as a little bit of a teaser for the future, we're working together with a Chuck character that is going to be one of the major digital offerings that we're going to do later in the year. And I tell you, the fun we are having creating some of the offshoots of this non-Warner Brothers, it's a character that Chuck developed in the late 70s, together is amazing. So I'm not going to go back into it. I'm not going to get any more details. It's just going to be that little teaser effect that when we get back together, and we will, that it's going to be a major announcement in a couple of months. So it's going to be very fun. But stay tuned, because we literally the digital world is going to be our oyster in the very near future.
Well, and I won't give anything away either. But I got to tell you, man, I'm having a blast with this, and once you're finally able to announce what you're able to announce, it's what a joy and delight to work with what we're working with, and to follow in one of my main inspirations to pull something off. So and we crack up the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best part, is to make each other laugh and enjoy it. And I'm glad you're doing a great job following in Chuck's footsteps. And so it's in so many ways. And actually, that's not what he wanted. He wanted you to figure out what you are passionate about and follow that to the best of your ability. And he said that is the way that you will honor him and the guys that he worked with. And you are doing that absolutely every day. And so know that Chuck is enjoying what you're doing. So appreciate it. And, we'll see you next time when you're in Florida.
Yo,
It's going to be good.
9 days, baby. 9 days. Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to send you some ice.
You could. Yeah. I've got a pool now that I can, dip in for like natural air conditioning.
Nice.
But
All right.
I wanted to say, as everybody's like putting such very nice comments in the chat, I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you to everybody who joined tonight. Thank you for coming on and indulging us in this and being a part of it. This is a thrill for me to be able to share wherever you are, and I love it. And it feeds my soul. And then to Craig, for you, what you all need to know, and like this man is not, the legacy of Chuck rolls through him, and he makes it his own, and he perpetuates that forward. And Craig is somebody who I admire and respect and trust in the highest degree. And I have a small circle of trust in that. And I just have the biggest admiration for Craig. And if you know him, what you see is what you get. And what a wonderful legacy that he continues to grow, through that. And I just don't get off screen. You get back on screen. I love you, man. It's 100%. You're one of the most genuine people. And I couldn't think of any more, closer friend to have than you on anything. And I love you, man.
It's a gush fest. I love it. And I appreciate it. I'll go with it. I'm here with you.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. So I think we're good. Everybody, thank you so much for coming and joining us tonight. It was this is just fun. It's just fun. So, and if that's I don't have fun more than at least 2 or 3 times a day, but this kind of is at the top. I would put it at the top of the week for me.
I'll take it.
And I have a lot of fun. So what the heck? All right, man. Pack up, enjoy, finish your boot. I'm gonna go find my boot. Yes, I know.
Do you see how much is gone? I mean, that's a lot.
I know. Well, the bottom part is a lot skinnier, so it's not nearly as much. So I mean, I don't know what if it'd be okay, but I mean, I think you should just finish it.
If Michael's calling Mauser Weekly, I'm like, I cannot know.
Okay, don't.
Thing tomorrow.
No, I get it. I totally get it. So, all right. Well,
all
love
right,
you, Ben. Thank you, everybody.
guys.
Love you all for being here.
Have a great night.
We'll see you another night. Bye-bye.